Hey everybody, and welcome back to the show. This is your host, Daniel Cutright. Good to be back with you guys again. And I am over the moon about the couple that we have joining us today, John and Sarah Toracinta. John and Sarah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, I'll give people that are listening just a little background too. We had a chance to catch up last week and we're on the phone for about 45 minutes. And I got off that call and I was just, I felt energized and inspired in talking to you guys and what you guys are doing. And so I'm going to let you guys talk about Nosolo. You guys are the founders of Nosolo. I'll let you guys talk about what that is. But for the audience listening, I know you guys are in for a real treat today. I'm actually, this is the first time ever on this podcast that I've done a conversation where it wasn't just me and one other person. And so we've got three of us on here. And I think this is going to be great, John and Sarah, to hear from both of you guys' perspectives on, get into some mental health aspects, because that's a little bit about why you guys started Nosolo. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about let you guys talk a little bit about the entrepreneurial side of things as well. And we'll maybe go down that route. And so this episode's going to be awesome, guys. So, John and Sarah, once again, welcome to the show. I'm going to let you guys kick it off by just talking again about what is Nosolo.
Yeah, sure. I'll start and then Sarah just jump in where needed. So Nosolo dates back to 2019. It's an idea we had. We kind of always wanted to start something kind of on our own. That kind of entrepreneurial spirit. Just, you have these ideas, but you're never really sure which one's going to stick. And this one, when we kind of, we had it flushed out where we wanted to kind of, I'm in product marketing and I've had some experience in my current and previous roles with product development. So hats, headwear is kind of my forte. I probably have one too many if you ask Sarah, but it's something I know all too well, from fit to quality to material to kind of everything. I have a little bit of everything. So we wanted to start with that. But one thing that we really kind of talked about a lot developing this idea was, everybody's out there creating brands nowadays, and you see some that kind of hang around for a little bit then fall off, and then others that are successful. And one thing we notice is that when you tie it to something that's powerful and meaningful and impactful to others, in a way that's helping others, and it's kind of a little bit bigger than just a brand, it seems to gain more traction. It seems to kind of garner more eyeballs. It's something that people want to be a part of and want to be connected to. And with Sarah's background, she's a behavior analyst. Mental health is something that's kind of hit home for both of us personally, friends and family. We both kind of have our own stories within that. So it's something that we believe that, on whatever level it may be, mental health is something that we personally think hits home for everybody on one level or another. You don't want to kind of downgrade anybody's kind of level of where they're at, because to each its own. It's something that everybody has to go through in their own way. But it's something that we feel kind of had a wide connection and something that meant something to us. So it's easy to really get behind something you're passionate about, and that was something that we're passionate about. So we kind of tied this idea with product with this mental health charitable arm. So we kind of call it product with a purpose. And then it took a while to launch the brand. Again, 2019, the idea started, but we didn't launch till 2021 in May, Mental Health Awareness Month. Mental Health Awareness Month is when we decided to launch. So a lot of stuff went into that. We wanted to build relationships. We wanted to make sure our products were top notch. One thing that we preached heavily was, let's not make this just like a charitable kind of organization where the products don't kind of match up to the cause. We wanted these epic products matched with this epic cause that really makes an impact across all levels and not just kind of one or the other. It was a long build and something that took a while, but we're really happy that we took our time doing it to make sure it got to where we wanted to. And, the past 16 months since launch, it's been amazing to say the least. Like, not only the support we received, but just the growth of the company. And we're up to just about $25,000 donated to NAMI in just a short 16 months. And, that's starting from the ground up, which we're extremely proud of. So now that we kind of got our footing and we're moving it along, we're seeing that number climb pretty drastically. And, who knows where it could be in 3, 4, 5 years, but we're expecting that to kind of keep growing, and we're excited what it can do for others, because being able to donate and make an impact, just knowing that you're kind of helping others who are going through similar struggles, different struggles, but fighting their own battles, and knowing that we can be a small piece in helping those other folks, then that's something we're proud to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of questions on that on the front end, just for people that don't know, what is NAMI?
NAMI is National Alliance on Mental Illness. Sarah, I'll let you jump in on a little bit of.
So yeah, that's who we decided to partner with. We did research in terms of, what types of services they provided, and we just wanted to make sure that we chose an organization that goes like nationally and is known nationally and is also credited, I guess is the right word for it. So they use their money towards education, towards resources, towards therapy for those who are struggling with mental health issues.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I like how you guys talk about, a business model with a purpose, because I think, you think about like millennials and the younger generations, that's really important to, kind of our generation, right? Like people, I saw yesterday, like the whole like Patagonia thing where the founder of Patagonia, donating his whole company to fight climate change. And I just saw like, social media was blowing up because people in our generation, they love, companies that are doing things that are meaningful, and something like mental health. Obviously it is meaningful. When we were talking before, John, you'd mentioned a stat where during COVID, the number of mental health cases, increased by 6 times. And this is something that, people, you said this too, everybody has their own story with mental health. And so maybe before we go down that road too, if you think about a definition for mental health, like when you hear mental health, and whoever wants to answer this, feel free, but like, what does that mean to you? Like, what does that term encompass? Because I think that term gets thrown around a lot. And again, I think it goes back to people's experiences are different with that.
Yeah, I think initially people would kind of had, and we were trying to go away from this word, a stigma. That mental health, like you only struggle with mental health if you're diagnosed with depression or if you're diagnosed with anxiety. And I think it's more of like a spectrum, and it comes and goes in people's lives. Some people might have struggle with mental health issues for a short time. Some people might struggle with it for across their lifetime. So I feel like mental health is more just like your physical health. It's literally just everything that accompanies, how you feel from day to day, and how you're able to kind of confront your everyday issues, and just take ownership of that, and being able to be comfortable with admitting like this triggers me, or this, I don't feel right, or I need this in order to succeed. It doesn't always have to be a negative thing. It's more positive. Like in order to be healthy mentally, this is what I need. Kind of like if you were to break a bone or something, you'd go to a doctor right away. You wouldn't be embarrassed about having a cast. You wouldn't be embarrassed about taking medications for it, doing the right therapy. So mental health is the same thing, but taking care of your mind.
Yeah. And real quick on that note too, and because I want everybody to understand that they're hearing from somebody that's credible in this area too. Your background, Sarah, you're a certified behavior analyst. Did I get that right?
Yeah, board certified behavior analyst.
Certified behavior analyst. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So you're kind of in this world, right? Like studying.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my students, I am working with kids who have severe, profound behavior disorders, but along with that, they also struggle with mental health issues, as do their parents too, which is a whole nother like chapter that I never thought that I would see. But so by no means am I a therapist, but it's something that I experience and deal with and work with on a daily basis.
Yeah. And that's something too, like, I mean, Sarah's taught me a ton. We've been together for almost a decade now, so she's taught me more than just that. But in terms of the mental health space and it's something where, I never really looked at it all too heavily before, but it was almost, I didn't know how to, I didn't kind of understand it. And she's kind of opened me up to understanding how to better understand myself. And I think that's a big piece of it. You say, like, what does mental health mean? And it's kind of taking care of your own mental well-being in a way that makes sense for you. It's not going to be the same for everybody. There's different avenues, there's different paths. The journey is not going to be the same for any two people, but it's kind of learning to understand yourself and take care of it. And she touched on the physical health is equal to mental health, and that couldn't be more accurate. You see people go to the gym every day and they're not injured and they're not disabled. So, like, why can't somebody who, may feel good about their mental health and their mental space continue to, whether it's journal, whether it's go to therapy, whether it's whatever your avenue is to build and kind of increase your mental strength. And I think that's a certain way that it's tough to get people to view it like that, but that's how it should be. And it's just because you feel okay and just because you got to a good physique, are you going to stop going to the gym? Probably not, or definitely not, and just because you feel like you're in a good mental space doesn't mean you still have to, doesn't mean that you should kind of stop giving the attention that it kind of deserves,
Yeah. I always love that parallel, just coming from an exercise physiology background. Like, to me, that always made a lot of sense because, several years, not that long ago, when we talked about mental health, like, it was kind of this enigma. Like, nobody really knew how to approach this, or it was only negative connotations. But if you rewind, even further back, when you think about like physical fitness and working out, and I don't know the exact year of when that was, but there was a time when people just didn't even understand that. Like, going to the gym was this foreign concept. Yeah. So, but you're right. I look at it as like, it's like mental well-being. Like, I love that analogy of, you're going to, if you break a bone, you're going to do things to get that bone healthy. But also, if you're trying to get fit, you're going to grow those muscles. If you're already strong, you're not going to stop just going to the gym. And it's the same thing. Like, when I think about just how our brains and organ are, we have so many chemicals going through our body that this is all part of our physiology, and being able to constantly do things to work on that and strengthen that. Hopefully, my hope is that this stigma goes away and we start moving towards more and more of that, where it's just everyday conversation. Like, mental health is just like going to the gym for people.
Right. That was huge for us. And I feel like that's what I felt really passionately about, is that it's not something to be ashamed of. And I want it to be an everyday conversation. And I feel like, maybe, I don't know how to say this, but like, our generation is getting to that point where we are more open about talking about it. Whereas generations before, therapy, a shrink, like, that is like taboo to them. Not all of them, but just, that's just something that kind of, we're just starting to break that barrier of, the importance of it, and that it's not embarrassing, I guess.
Yeah.
And it kind of boils down to, again, when we started this, it's like, what do we want out of it? We want a community that, supports one another. And that's what we're trying to establish. And I think we're doing a pretty good job. I think, like, people are kind of understanding what we're going for, and the kind of bigger that community, like the more people that join that community, the more people that are part of that community, the more accepted these conversations become, the more frequent these conversations become. And like you said, like, as time goes on, it just becomes something that's not as, again, we're trying not to use the word stigma anymore, because it's something, if we can get past that, we can kind of move a little further ahead. So that's something that we've taken out of our content and whatever, but it's something that it won't be kind of looked at the way it is right now. And the more you can talk about it, the more frequent those conversations can be. And if you can create that kind of community that just supports and empowers people to take ownership of their own mental health, we can all kind of move forward with it.
Yeah. How did you come up with the name Nosolo? Because I mean, that's very much in line with what we're talking about right now, is creating community. But did you have other names that you guys bounced around, or?
Yeah. So we were in Croatia on our honeymoon in 2019. We got married in July. We were on a honeymoon in Croatia, and that's where the idea kind of clicked. And I kind of skipped this part of the story before, but we were talking to some locals there, and we just kind of we were just having conversation over a couple glasses of wine at a winery, and they kind of own the winery, and they were giving us the whole tour and spiel, and it kind of clicked that like kindness is transcendent. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. Everybody kind of goes through similar struggles. And, you know, we initially were going to name it something Croatian, which looking back, I'm like, thank God we didn't. It's actually
we have
phrase,
a tattoo of it.
It's a phrase called Javelli, and it means like to life, like to happiness to life. Yeah. And we actually both have it tattooed on our inner bicep. But it's an extremely, extremely difficult word to not only say, but to write and pronounce. Yeah. And so like after some thought, we were like, that's kind of like the vibe of the company, is that we want to kind of create this community that's like, you know, to life, to happiness, embracing everything. And so the idea, the idea behind it was there, but the actual like visual and we're like, will people even know what this is? Like, will they be able to understand it? And if someone hears about it, will they be able to Google it? Probably not. Okay. So after kind of some thought, I actually was just like, I boiled it down. I was like, what's the company? And it's about not being alone. So it's just a twist on words, no solo, not alone. And that's our mantra. I mean, that's what we go by. You're not alone in anything you go through. And our little slogan that we kind of use frequently that you'll see in a lot of our content is nobody goes solo. So that's kind of how it boiled down. So there was one name before, not too many iterations of before Nosolo happened, but we're glad we landed where we did.
Yeah, no, it's catchy. And I feel like even, I mean, when you think about the Croatian word, I'm like, you know, would people in America actually recognize that? But like Nosolo, when I think on the flip side, I'm like, that's a term that probably most languages would be able to recognize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Have you guys had exposure in other countries?
We do. Yeah. So we actually have some friends in England who rep it a lot. Some friends in Ireland. We've gotten plenty of actually Canadian support.
Nice.
So Victor Hedman and Nate Thompson are a couple of our, and Dion Phaneuf are a couple of ambassadors of ours, and I'm sure we'll get to that later on. But big NHL guys and fantastic people overall, but they've been incredibly supportive. Yeah. Kind of since we started, and when I was introduced to them and kind of pitched them this idea, they were like, send me some product. I'd love to support it. I'd love to kind of help you guys grow and promote it. And ever since that, we've seen a lot of Canadian support, and that's probably because NHL is huge in Canada. But yeah, it's pretty cool to see not only the kind of spread of where orders are shipping off to within the States, but you know, over the pond and to our friends above the border north. It's cool to see it spreading so quickly.
That's cool. And you told me some stories before about, you know, brand recognition and people seeing this logo, which I want to get into that a little bit later, which I think is phenomenal, right? Like that's probably one of the biggest parts of the mission for you guys is people being able to see this and then tie back to, you know, value being added to these people. But I want to go down the entrepreneurial route here a little bit and just talk about, because you mentioned you guys were in a planning phase for about 2 years before you launched, correct?
Yeah.
Just under two, and you were both still working full-time jobs. Is that right?
Yeah, still are too.
And still are. Okay. And I think this is important for people to hear too. I also don't want to neglect the fact that this planning phase was during COVID, that you were deciding to launch a new business. And I actually love that, because I think sometimes people saw that scenario, and yes, there was a lot of negative with it, but it's cliche, but silver linings, right? Like there were a lot of good things that for people that chose to seek them out came from that period too. And people that were able to turn something negative into something more positive. So maybe just speak to, why was it that you took kind of a 2-year runway or just under before you launched, and then just the decision to hold on to your full-time jobs while launching something versus just saying, hey, we have this idea, let's just get some funding and let's go for it. I love talking about this because I think this can help a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. So again, once the idea was kind of concrete and locked in, first and foremost, it was about putting the relationships in place that made sense to us, that with people that we can trust. So it's kind of utilizing our networks, and you know, factories was kind of priority 1A. I mean, you have a great idea, but if you can't create a product, a quality product, then you're not going to go anywhere. So we used some connections. We made some who introduced us to a few factory connections overseas, and we kind of began the sampling process. So again, like I said earlier, I'm a hat nerd, to say the least. I have a few hundred in the closet, and I don't wear all of them, but whenever I go somewhere, it's let me get a hat to kind of create the memory. When I travel for work to golf courses, I get hats at every course I play. It's just kind of something that's kind of my product of purchase wherever I go. So I was very, very well versed in what makes a good hat. And so we went through probably 5 or 6 rounds of sampling to lock in each category hat. And we started with 7 different categories of hats. Main reason being we wanted to have something out there for everyone. I mean, overall, headwear is baseball hats in general is more of a male dominant accessory, I would say. I mean, there's definitely females that wear it and wear it very well, but overall it was male. So we wanted to try and make sure that we had as good of a female offering, unisex, male, different silhouettes, flat brim, different kind of closure systems, just stuff that would fit and feel good on everybody. So that was a very long piece of kind of getting this going. And nothing kind of, it wasn't like we're just going to do that and then we'll get to the next thing. Like simultaneously, website development was a big one. A lot of back and forth with me and Sarah on how we wanted to portray our message and our stance on the mental health topic. I think that's key. As you're launching a new brand and you have people reading through the website, it's vital to have everything as locked in as possible, and so that stuff isn't changing and they read about it, and a couple of years from now we still have that same vision, and that's something that we've stood strong by. I think we've done a good job with that. So kind of website development, I mean, even little things like content creation, photography partners to photograph not only the product, but lifestyle shots and how people wear it and how people use it and what kind of environments. So it wasn't like it was, obviously the product was probably the main thing and a little bit of the website, but then on the other side, it was the relationship with NAMI. Once we figured out this is what we want to do, we, like Sarah was explaining earlier, we went through, 4 or 5 different organizations and just kind of vetted through who we wanted to be partnered with and who we wanted the brand Nosolo to be attached to. And like Sarah said, NAMI's just stood out from the rest in terms of what they've accomplished and what they continue to do for others. So we kind of started that relationship with a lot of back and forth, and them kind of giving a little insight into their organization and what they do on a deeper level than what we could read about online. And then also us kind of letting them know that, hey, this is what we're thinking. We want 20% of everything we sell to go to you. And kind of they let us know like where that goes to. And like Sarah said, all the resources and outlets that they offer is what our money's used for, which is great to see and to know, so that when people ask, we kind of have an answer for it. So again, a lot of things on a lot of different levels and all kind of running at the same time. But on top of that, with 2 full-time 9-to-5 or full-time, however you want to say it, jobs. And, it's a lot. It was nights and weekends and early mornings, but I say this and I say it a lot, but and it's kind of cliche, but when you're passionate about it, it doesn't really feel like work. We don't mind going downstairs and packing some orders. We don't mind having conversations late at night about like how we want to launch a certain campaign. It's fun. It's and it's something that's making an impact. So that's kind of that's exactly what we were looking to do.
Yeah. I also think it's awesome that you guys are doing this together, and it's something that you're both excited about. Like that probably just creates a whole nother dynamic to your relationship too. And just the energy that's there, and you guys having like the same vision, like to me, that's incredible.
Yeah, no, it's been great. It's been a lot of fun. So
yeah.
She doesn't get sick of me too often.
How do you feel like you guys' backgrounds played into this too? Because John, you come from more of kind of the sales and business side of things. Sarah, you're more on the behavioral side of things. Do you feel like that was a great combination of skill sets to be able to launch something like this? And then I guess this is your first entrepreneurial endeavor too. So like, were there things that were challenging for you that you're like, we got to figure this out, that you had to like consult other people for?
I feel like for me, I think initially I was just nervous, like if we're going to do something about mental health, because I know like being a board certified behavior analyst, I can't just like go in and say like I'm an expert in something if I'm not actually an expert. So I was a little bit hesitant of, if we're going to do mental health, are people going to think that we are, like a tool or a resource that they could turn to? So I was a little bit nervous about that part of it. But I do think that our backgrounds and experience, like in life, and just our experience with our own mental health issues have that brought a lot to the table. I also think I'm a yoga instructor as well. And I think that kind of helped me to bring like a different like side of it to it as well. So yeah, to answer your question, I think we both definitely bring different skills to the table. But my one hesitancy at first was just being afraid. I didn't want people to think that we think we're experts or that we're the answer to anything. And Johnny was kind of the one that was like, no, I mean, we can make this awesome product. We don't have to be experts. So yeah.
Yeah, because it's more the cause that's driving it. We're definitely not experts. I mean, Sarah's more an expert than anybody, but I'm not an expert by any means, and I'll be the first to say that. But it is kind of cool to see when we started this, and there's numerous stories, and we'll get into them later. But even on lower levels, like friends and family reaching out and almost giving a little insight into their own personal stories, because some people don't have an outlet or know how to kind of get stuff off their chest. And as soon as they see, oh, John and Sarah started this Nosolo brand, and it's about, raising awareness and taking action on mental health. And, that seems like an outlet. I can tell them about something I'm going through. And it's again, not an expert by any means, but it's wild to see people kind of open up. And that was just the beginning of it. And, there's some bigger stories that we'll go through later, but kind of back to the beginning, I think the way we work so well is because while we both have some overlapping talents and expertise, I think with Sarah's kind of board certified behavior analyst background and what she can do with that, and then my background on marketing and product development, I think we kind of had our own lanes to a point, but then there was that also like overlapping middle section where we could work together. So we kind of had our marching orders to a point where it's, I run with this, you run with this. Let's make sure to kind of, check in with each other and make sure we're kind of on going the same speed here, and stuff's making sense as we go. But I think that's one thing that worked really well that we don't really talk about too much, is just like our expertise was great in our own separate lanes, but we also had overlapping talents that made sense, that helped bring it all together and make this story complete.
Yeah. I love what you said about, I think that's really important for people to hear, is like, hey, we're not the experts, but it's the cause that's driving this. And talking earlier about businesses that have longevity. And I think sometimes people think, oh, well, like, what's a business that I can start? Like, what's a cool product? But if there's no cause or purpose behind it, then oftentimes, there's burnout or it just doesn't last. But I love just that aspect of things. It's like, hey, we didn't have to be the experts. We let the cause drive this. We'll put the right people in the right places to help in this scenario. And then I love how you mentioned people started coming to you as an outlet almost. So it's like, maybe that wasn't even the intention of like, hey, I wasn't trying to fill this void here.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, like, has that changed you in ways of people reaching out to you guys now? And all of a sudden you're probably in a sense like, whoa, like, I don't even know if I feel qualified to have this conversation, but I'm in it now. And like, has that taught you more about mental health?
I think it has. I think it's showing us that it's what the brand was created to do in terms of create this community of support and compassion and strength in numbers. It's showing that it's working. Mm-hmm. It's showing that that people are, people who once didn't have that outlet, and we can be that outlet. That's not a problem for us. That's what we're welcoming that. We're not the final destination for some of these issues, but or some of these struggles, but we could be a starting point, and maybe we're the starting point, and that leads to something else that, ultimately becomes more impactful for the individual reaching out. But that was something that maybe Sarah thought differently. I didn't even think that would happen. I didn't think that I would personally be reached out to about stuff, knowing that, again, no expert, no background in this. What we've done to research the company and the relationship we established with NAMI, sure, we can help direct you or help point you in the right direction. And maybe that's the reasoning why, but no, it's pretty heartwarming to kind of have some of those conversations and continue to have some of those conversations, and kind of do what we can. And again, that small piece to help them get going is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it definitely excites me. And I think, Johnny, you said it really well, that we might not be the destination, but we can be a starting point. And I feel like that's kind of going back to what we originally wanted, was to make this a conversation that people are comfortable having. And if they can start with sharing their story with us, then maybe that means they can start to, take the next steps to do whatever it is that they need to do to help themselves. So the story, sometimes they bring you to tears, not gonna lie. So it's great to be a part of it.
That's awesome. Maybe share a couple of those stories that you guys had shared with me too, of just, how, like, it's just cool to me. Like, this was awesome, but seeing how the brand is actually working, like people seeing this logo, like it's because sometimes I think we wonder whether it's doing something like this podcast or it's whatever it might be that we're pursuing. I think we all have the question of, like, is this making an impact? Like, is what I'm doing working? Like, does my life have purpose? Right? Like, all these types of things, everybody has these questions. And for people listening, you probably have something that you're working on where you're asking that same question. And I think there are little indicators along the way and these little stories that make it all worth it. But for you guys, maybe you just share a couple of those.
Yeah. So the first one was one of the first stories we heard, and this is probably one of the more, they're all impactful, but this one was kind of the first big story we received from a friend of a friend. And like Sarah said, like, definitely brought tears to a lot of people's eyes just to see the impact it had on someone. But so anyways, a friend of a friend reached out and just kind of shared this with us, that an individual in college was having a panic attack and called his mom to kind of come pick him up. It was kind of a local enough college. So his mom picked him up to bring him to the hospital just to get checked out, make sure everything was okay. They're in the car on the way to the hospital, and the kid says to his mom, "Oh, Mom, you're wearing a Nosolo hat." She's like, "Yeah, I got a few of these, and I decided to wear this today. I know what you're going through. Just wanted to show, like, I'm here to support, and I'm here for you." And he looked at her and he said, "Yeah, I have my Nosolo bracelet too. I follow them on Instagram." And she's like, "Oh, that's great." And he goes, "You know what? Whenever I have these panic attacks and whenever I'm going through something, I look down and I tug at my Nosolo bracelet, because it's just a slight reminder to me that I'm not the only one going through this. And that's just, I don't know if anything embodies Nosolo more than that. A $2 bracelet is something that's a reminder, and that's a comfort factor for somebody who's going through a really hard time and struggling with something like that. I don't think we could have created a better story. And again, not saying creating like it's a serious topic, but that's exactly what we created the brand to do.
That's awesome. Share. I think you had one or two more, but feel free to share those too.
To the Emma Jean story.
Oh, the Emma Jean story. So Emma Jean, I was traveling for work. I work for FootJoy Golf Company. So I was out at the Memorial Golf Tournament in Ohio. This was May of 2021. The brand had launched 3 weeks prior to it. So of course I'm traveling back wearing my Nosolo hat. A little bit of a delay on the flight back on a Wednesday afternoon. So I park it at a wine bar and I grab a glass of wine, just kind of watching Sports Center, waiting for my flight. And this woman, a couple seats down, I just got off the phone talking to one of my coworkers and just kind of giving them the update on a lot of the tour guides we met with and whatnot. And she's like, "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. I heard these names like JT and, Will Zalatoris and all these certain names. She's like, so we got to talking about what we do. And then she asked about my hat. So I went down the whole Nosolo story. I was like, hey, we just launched this brand and this is what it's about. And this is what we're trying to do. And her son struggled heavily with depression. He's got a tattoo on his arm that says, keep going. Just something to help remind him, that no matter what, just kind of keep pushing through and everything's going to be okay. So I kept in touch with this woman, Pam. So a couple months later, I get an email from Pam and her husband, Jim, and it's a picture of their 1977 Cadillac, red Cadillac. So what they do is they have this car that they let anybody in the neighborhood and family and friends use to kind of create memories. It's kind of this safe space and people take it for joy rides and they call it Emma Jean. So what they did was they created a vanity Nosolo license plate and put it on Emma Jean. And so everybody that rides that asks about Nosolo, understands Nosolo, and they were like, Nosolo is why Emma Jean was started. It's to create that community support and just that kind of comforting space. And while ours is a brand and a website and product, their form of Nosolo was their car, Emma Jean. So they did a vanity plate. They sent us a bunch of pictures with them and their family and friends riding in the car with the Nosolo tag on the plate. So we had to send them a bunch of bracelets. So everybody who rides an Emma Jean now gets a red Nosolo bracelet, and then we have a Nosolo journal that they write some of their great memories about what it was like riding an Emma Jean.
That's awesome, man.
So pretty cool.
Yeah. And you guys you mentioned earlier, a couple of brand ambassadors. One of the guys that played for the Tampa Bay Lightning, I think it was.
Yep. Victor Hedman. So he's two-time Stanley Cup champ, defensive player of the year, I believe, just one of the top players in the NHL. They lost in the finals this year. We were rooting hard for him and the crew, but even as I'm not really a huge hockey guy. Bruins would probably be my team. So some of my friends will be battered when they hear I was rooting for the Tampa Bay Lightning, because that's somewhat of a level. But you got to root for my guy Vic. But yeah, I mean, there's another story that goes along with that, and I'll just jump right in if that's cool.
Yeah.
He was wearing one of our hats during the Stanley Cup Media Day. So I mean, first off, that's unbelievable exposure for a big Nosolo cap on. It's crazy. Even during a lot of his interviews and stuff, people are asking him what it is, and he's pitching Nosolo like, honestly, like we're paying him, and we can't right now because we're 16 months old and we don't have that funds. But he, again, one of those guys that was like, I don't need the money. I believe in what you guys are doing. I want to support it fully. So he was wearing it, and we got an email from another individual down in the Tampa area, and this is a devastating story, but he lost his 1.5-year-old daughter to a drowning incident. So he was watching, and he saw Vic with the Nosolo hat, and he's a big Lightning fan, and he was like, I don't know what Nosolo is, but Vic Hedman's rocking it and supporting that. Like, jumped on Google, typed in Nosolo, went on our website, browsed, like kind of grasped what we're about and what we stand for, and immediately was like, you know what, there's certain days, in his note, it was like, there's certain days where it just feels like it's never ending, and you can't get through it, especially with some of the trauma that him and his family have been through. But he's like, to see Victor Hedman wearing a Nosolo hat, to know that people are out there supporting, and whether they know me or not, they're here for me. And he just said how much of an impact just seeing that on Victor Hedman at a time when he was like, I didn't expect to see anything promoted like that during a Stanley Cup. He's like, just shows how important it is to not only him, but to people like Victor and people of Victor's status. And I mean, the Stanley Cup, that's as big as it gets in the NHL world. And he's making sure that, there's going to be a ton of eyeballs. I'm going to wear my Nosolo hat because, like this individual in Tampa, there's other people that are going through stuff. And it's just a good reminder that, hey, you're not alone in everything you're going through.
Yeah, that's big. As you're telling these stories, and I'm just thinking about, like, it's such a simple Nosolo, right? Like, it's a simple tag. But when you think about what it means, and you think about aloneness and isolation, those are two of probably the scariest things for people, is that feeling of being alone or being in isolation. I mean, like, you think back to COVID, and like, even me, like, we had this conversation before, but like, even me, like, have been fortunate to maybe not struggle with a ton of serious mental health things or anything like that. But even in that moment of like, there's some isolation there, like there's things that start to wear on you a little bit, and it makes you start to take inventory of your mental health. And for people that, yeah, they feel that just whatever it is, maybe they don't feel like they can talk about it, but they just feel that sense of being alone. Like, I think that's such a heavy thing. And so to be able to see something so simple, just a quick reminder in all these stories of like Nosolo, it's like, it breaks that aloneness pattern, even if it's just the start, even if it's just for a split second. And I love what you guys talking about, just even if we're just the door openers, right? Like, even if we're just kind of that entry point that allows people to just talk about this more and flee from that isolation and alone feeling. Like, that's the message that I kind of hear as you're telling all these stories, which is awesome, man.
Yeah. And it's so cool. Like how spread out it is. And these are people who we have relationships with now. And we talk to these individuals, I don't know, weekly, bi-weekly, just check in, like, and we had no idea who each other were, you know, a month before those contact emails or those stories. So it's cool to just see the relationships be created, and just kind of add one more person in their corner, because we're in their corner and we're supporting them. And, you know, you never know when that can be a difference, and that can be a difference with them.
Yeah. And for those people listening on audio too, I just want to point out the fact that John and Sarah, they're repping the Nosolo gear, sweatshirts, hats, which is awesome too. I still need to get order my sweatshirt because I was on your guys' website. By the way, for listeners, go to, is it nosolo.com?
Nosolobrand.com.
Nosolobrand.com. All right. So let me make sure I get that right. Nosolobrand.com. Make sure you go and check out their stuff too. Maybe one final question here, or one or two more questions as we wind down. But when you think about Nosolo and where it's going, do you guys have, like, what's your vision for the future? What are you excited about with the brand moving forward?
Jump in.
Okay. So I mean, we've actually been having a lot of conversations about this recently because, I mean, ideally we would love to be able to take this and make it like our baby, our full-time job. I am just excited again about the conversation piece, and even just something as small as like family members that are older now being able to talk about stuff that they were not comfortable talking about before. So I'm just excited about getting that conversation piece going and continuing to, build our community. And in terms of like the business aspect of it, Johnny probably is better at explaining what's next.
Yeah,
for that.
I mean, so I'm psyched on building the community. I mean, it's, again, 16 short months, which have gone by crazy fast. But how much progress we made in just that short amount of time. So to put more road behind us and kind of keep pushing this forward, I'm definitely excited to see where the community aspect goes and how many people and we can kind of get on board and followers. And so make sure to follow us on Instagram too at Nosolo Brand. But that's exciting. And what's really exciting for me is product line extension is something that's kind of very in the very near future. We're looking on ways to, right now we have our headwear selection is pretty damn good, if I do say so myself. So I think we're in a pretty good spot, but introducing new categories, broadening the apparel lineup. We got some tees and long sleeves in a lot of different colors coming in with fresh new designs. We're working with some outside designers on kind of, being able to hit all markets and all demographics. And we have control of definitely the more simplistic apparel concepts. If you look at our site, and that's something we wanted to start with, but we want to start branching out and, getting a little more loud. I want somebody to be wearing a hoodie or a crew or a long sleeve, and it's so loud that other people can't not notice it. So that's kind of next phase. So product extension. We also have some other ideas, and they're very premature, but getting more involved, just to give you an overall kind of broad idea, getting more involved with college campuses is something that we're looking to do. We have a Monarch program where we have a lot of college Monarchs who we give them a discount code, and they kind of go spread the word about Nosolo. Every sale that their discount code is used for, we kick back a percent at the end of the month to them, but also the the individual buying product with their code gets 20% off. So it's kind of a win-win, but again, just helping spread the brand, get it out there, is something. But yeah, getting more involved in college campuses, I'll kind of leave it at that because there's still a few hurdles to jump before we can share that news. But there's definitely some exciting stuff, some fun stuff right on the horizon, right around the corner, and it's going to happen fast. So we just got to make sure we kind of keep the pedal down and keep pushing this forward.
That's awesome. Well, certainly excited to follow and see where this goes and continue to help support you guys. I do want to point out, Sarah, one thing that you said there. I think it's a really great point, is reaching people that are in that older generation, like our parents. And I think
exactly.
two reasons that stood out to me is because, one, it wasn't talked about for that generation. Right. And I think a lot of those people can have walls up around these topics, but they very much can be struggling with these things too. And
Absolutely.
I think the second reason I think that's important is because I think sometimes if just because it's your parent, you think about this person as like, could I actually teach my parents anything, right? Like they were the ones that raised me. They're the ones responsible for teaching me. But I've seen this even in my own life where people that are older in my family have started to come to me for certain things. And so that is, for people listening, I just wanted to reiterate that point, because don't think just because you're younger that you can't add value to somebody that's older. Like, yes, hopefully they can add value to you too, but don't think it's one directional. And so I think that's such an important point.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, our main demographic is definitely younger. It's probably late teens to late 30s, 40s ish, because and that's more like the product that we develop, what it's kind of geared towards. But that's more of, if we can adjust the mindset of that demographic, then going forward, I think that's how we can make the most impact. But we have a lot of, I don't want to say older, I don't know a better word, but higher aged individuals who love the brand, follow the brand, are huge advocates. So it just shows that it's not, while maybe if we have to target and say we target a certain demographic, it's not by no means contained to that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Great, guys. This was awesome. I know people got a ton out of this, both from not just the business side, but from the mental health pieces that we hit on. And it's clear why you guys are excited about this. And the part of it that you're most excited about is the purpose behind it, which I think is very refreshing. So really appreciate both of you guys being on today. Once again, nosolobrand.com, and then follow these guys on Instagram. Any other social media platforms? Instagram, the main one?
Instagram's the main one. We have a Twitter, but we don't go on that all that.
I don't go on Twitter either that much. So
no, those if you're gonna follow the journey and want to be a part of the community, those are the two stops you got to make.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you again so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Guys, listen to this episode. Well, if you're here, you did listen to this episode, but share this episode with other people so that they can get value out of this as well. And as always, feel free to drop us a rating, leave comments, and we really appreciate it. So John and Sarah, thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Dan. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.